Chicago was wrapped in a bitter kind of cold that December night, the kind that cut through wool coats and whispered against skin like glass. The streets glittered with holiday lights, wreaths hung on lampposts, and the air was thick with the scent of roasted chestnuts and cinnamon from the nearby markets. Laughter echoed from restaurant patios wrapped in heat lamps and faux fur throws. It was Christmas Eve, and the city seemed to hum with anticipation, except for Michael Carter. Michael stepped out of the glass doors of his office tower in the Loop, the tallest building on Madison Avenue, where the name Carter Financial glowed in gold letters against the skyline. He tugged the collar of his tailored coat higher, not against the wind but against the ache inside him. The ache of another holiday alone. 3 years ago, he had buried his wife, Caroline. Since then, Christmas had become a quiet affair, a table set for two that never was, a bottle of wine half finished, and his son, Ethan, spending more and more time lost in books or silence. Michael hadn't lit a Christmas tree in 2 years. He told himself he was too busy. Truthfully, he was too hollow. He declined the driver that night. Something about walking felt necessary, as if the movement might dislodge the weight he carried. The sidewalks were crowded with last-minute shoppers, couples huddled under shared scarves, and children pointing excitedly at store windows. Michael moved against the tide, turning away from Michigan Avenue, toward the quieter underpass beneath Wacker Drive. The city sounds faded into an eerie hush there, and the streetlights cast long, uncertain shadows across the concrete. That's when he heard it, a sound so soft it might have been imagined. A child's voice. "Please, please don't walk past me." Michael stopped. The words cut through him sharper than the wind. He turned his head slowly, scanning the alley where a patch of shadow didn't quite sit right. He stepped closer. There, wedged between a rusted dumpster and a concrete pillar, was a little girl, no older than 6. Her coat was 2 sizes too big, her socks mismatched, and only one sneaker clung to her foot. She lay curled on top of flattened cardboard boxes, her small backpack shoved beneath her head like a pillow. Her skin was pale, her lips tinged blue, and her tiny hands trembled in the cold. But her eyes, those wide, unblinking brown eyes, met his with a quiet defiance. "I'm not trash," she said again, her voice cracking but determined. "I'm just lost." Michael's breath caught in his throat. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice unfamiliar to even himself. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily, are you hurt?" She shook her head slowly. "Just cold. I wanted to find my mom. She works at the hospital, but I couldn't remember which one." "Which hospital, sweetheart?" She turned her head toward the skyline, where a building across the river stood tall and bright. "I saw that one and thought, maybe that was it." Michael followed her gaze. His own office tower. He knelt beside her without hesitation, shrugging off his coat and wrapping it around her shoulders. She flinched at the warmth, then leaned into it. "My mom said if I ever got lost, I should go where there's light," she mumbled. "So I went to the biggest light I saw." Michael couldn't speak. Something in his chest cracked open. He scooped her into his arms, shocked at how light she was. Her head slumped against his shoulder. He didn't think. He acted. Pulling his phone from his pocket, he dialed 911. "I've found a child," he said, trying to keep the urgency from turning into panic. "She's freezing. Hypothermic. We're under Wacker Drive near State Street." "Stay on the line," the dispatcher instructed. Minutes passed like hours. Michael rocked her gently, murmuring reassurances, though he wasn't sure she was still conscious enough to hear them. Then, the distant sound of sirens. Red and white lights flared against the buildings. An ambulance pulled up, brakes screeching, and 2 paramedics jumped out. Michael didn't let go until one of them gently reached for Lily. Even then, he brushed her hair back from her forehead before letting her slip from his arms onto the stretcher. "She said her mom works at a hospital," Michael told them. "She was trying to find her." "Do you know which hospital?" one paramedic asked. Michael shook his head. "No, but I'll follow her." He climbed into the back of the ambulance, still clutching her small pink backpack, the only thing she owned. Inside, the vehicle rattled through traffic. Machines beeped steadily. Oxygen hissed softly through the mask they'd placed over Lily's nose and mouth. Michael sat frozen. The world outside blurred, just streaks of snow and traffic lights. Inside, time stood still. He didn't pray. He hadn't in years. But he hoped. At St. Jude Memorial, the doors burst open, and Lily was wheeled in. Nurses moved quickly, and a doctor with gray hair and tired eyes barked orders. Michael followed until someone stopped him at the threshold of the ER. "She's in good hands, sir," a nurse said gently. He nodded, dazed, still holding the backpack. He took a seat in the waiting room. The overhead lights buzzed. The smell of antiseptic filled his nostrils. Across from him, families waited, some pacing, some crying. He sat alone, a stranger holding a lost child's only possession. Minutes passed. Then a nurse approached. "Are you the one who found her?" Michael stood. "Yes. She's stable, for now. Mild hypothermia. Dehydration. But she's tough." She asked for her mom. Michael's chest tightened. "She said her mom works here. Can you check your staff records?" She thought her mom's name was Rachel. "Rachel Thompson." The nurse hesitated. "We admitted a woman earlier tonight. No ID. Found unconscious in the stairwell. She's in the ICU. Could that be her?" Michael asked. "I don't know, but we'll check." The nurse left. Michael looked down at the pink backpack still in his hands. It was worn, fraying at the seams. A small keychain dangled from the zipper, a plastic angel holding a heart. He sat back down, and for the first time in years, Michael Carter felt something stir in his chest. It wasn't fear. It was the flicker of something else. A fragile, trembling kind of hope. The halls of St. Jude Memorial buzzed with a hushed urgency, the kind that only hospitals know. Michael stood outside the pediatric observation unit, hands shoved deep into his pockets, Lily's worn pink backpack still dangling from one hand. Nurses moved around him with practiced efficiency, checking monitors, adjusting IVs, updating charts. Behind the glass window, Lily lay curled beneath a heated blanket, her face pale but peaceful. Her breath rose and fell with a steadiness that reassured him more than any machine ever could. A small oxygen tube rested under her nose. Her fingers still clung to the scarf he'd wrapped around her back in the alley, as if it were the one thing tethering her to safety. Michael didn't realize how long he had been standing there until someone tapped his shoulder. It was the nurse who had spoken to him earlier. "We think we've found her mother," she said. "Rachel Thompson. She's in the ICU." Unidentified patient found collapsed in a staff stairwell around the same time Lily was brought in. No ID, no phone. She's been unconscious since arrival. Michael followed her down a different hallway, past rows of rooms behind glass. The ICU felt colder somehow, quieter, more restrained. The kind of place where time slowed, stretched, and folded back on itself. When they reached the room, the nurse pushed open the door gently. Rachel Thompson lay still on the hospital bed. Her face was bruised, a bandage wrapped around her forehead. A breathing tube was taped to her mouth, and her chest rose in slow, mechanical rhythm with the ventilator. Michael froze. It was her. He recognized her, not from any recent interaction, but from memory. A night long ago, when his wife was in labor. The chaos, the beeping alarms, the sudden drop in Caroline's blood pressure. And through it all, a calm, clear voice cutting through the fear. "You're okay. Just breathe with me. You're not alone." He had never forgotten that voice. And now here she was, unconscious, silent. The woman who had once helped his family through its most fragile hour. Her own daughter now lying in the pediatric ward, alone but brave enough to follow the light. "Will she wake up?" Michael asked. The nurse hesitated. "We're hopeful. She has a concussion and severe fatigue. Her vitals are stabilizing, but there's no telling when, or if, she'll regain consciousness." Michael nodded slowly, then turned to leave. Back in the waiting area, a new face was waiting, a caseworker from Child Protective Services. She introduced herself as Dana Price and got straight to the point. "Mr. Carter, I understand you were the one who found the child." "Yes. Her name's Lily. She doesn't have any other family listed. No emergency contacts. If her mother doesn't regain consciousness in the next 48 hours, we'll have to place her into emergency foster care." Michael's stomach twisted. "No, that's not. She shouldn't be moved. She just got here. She's terrified." Dana's tone softened, but her eyes remained firm. "I understand. But without legal guardianship, no one can authorize her care long-term. Unless someone is willing to assume temporary custody." The words hung in the air. Michael looked at the room where Lily lay, her tiny frame lost beneath the blanket. She had no idea what was coming. Another transition. Another unknown. Another stranger's house. He made the decision before he could talk himself out of it. "I'll take her," he said quietly. At least until her mother wakes up. Dana looked at him, skeptical. Mr. Carter, with all due respect, this isn't a charity decision. This is full legal responsibility. You'd be liable for everything. Schooling, medical care, emotional well-being. I understand, Michael said. She came to me. I'm not sending her away. Dana nodded, scribbling something on her clipboard. We'll need to do a home check and run background clearances. But for now, she stays in your care, under supervision. It felt like the air had shifted. The weight of the choice settled on Michael's shoulders, but not as a burden. More like a responsibility he had unknowingly been preparing for. He went back to Lily's room. She was awake this time, her big eyes blinking slowly, trying to focus on the ceiling tiles. Hey, he said softly, stepping closer. Her gaze found him. Her lips curved slightly. You stayed. I told you I would. She sat up a little, looking around. Is this a hospital? Yes. St. Jude's. You made it. She let out a shaky breath. Is Mommy here? Michael crouched beside the bed, not wanting to overwhelm her. We think so. A nurse named Rachel was brought in tonight. She's resting right now, but she's safe. Lily's eyes welled up, but she didn't cry. She nodded, brave even now. Will I get to see her? When the doctors say it's time, yes. Until then, how about you stay with me? Lily tilted her head. Where? My place. Just for a little while. I'll make sure you're warm, and fed, and safe. She considered this with surprising maturity, then nodded again. Okay. Michael sat with her until she fell asleep, her small fingers wrapped around his. By the time he got home that night, with Lily asleep in the back seat wrapped in a blanket, it was well past midnight. The city streets were empty, quiet except for the hum of snowplows and the soft echo of Christmas carols from a distant speaker. He carried Lily up to his penthouse apartment overlooking Millennium Park. It was pristine, sterile, like a showroom of wealth without warmth. He realized, with some shame, that there was nothing remotely child-friendly in the space. No toys, no colors, no sign that a child had ever lived there. He made up a spot for her on the couch, gently setting her backpack beside her. She stirred, murmured something about her mom, then slipped back into sleep. Michael watched her, a knot forming in his throat. He walked down the hallway to check on Ethan, who had already fallen asleep in his room. His son looked peaceful, but there was distance even in his sleeping posture, like a child who had learned to build walls too early. Michael closed the door softly. In the silence of his home, with snow beginning to fall outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, he sat alone in the living room, staring at the two closed doors, one where his son slept, and one where a stranger's child had begun to take root in his life. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He only knew this. He hadn't felt this alive in years. And that terrified him. Morning in Chicago broke cold and gray, the skyline obscured by a thin veil of snow drifting lazily through the air. Michael Carter stood in the kitchen of his penthouse, staring at the coffee brewing into his favorite mug, the one Caroline had given him years ago. He hadn't used it in months. It felt wrong to drink from it now, as if this morning, this home, no longer belonged to the man he had been. From the living room came the soft creak of leather as Lily stirred on the couch. Michael moved quietly, careful not to startle her. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes, the oversized blanket wrapped around her shoulders like armor. Morning, he said gently. She nodded, her voice hoarse. Do we go see Mom today? Not yet, he replied. The doctors still need to make sure she's stable enough for visitors. But we can call the hospital and check on her. Lily nodded again. She didn't ask for toys or cartoons. She didn't complain. She simply sat, watching the snow fall beyond the windows like it was the only thing tethering her to the day. Michael handed her a mug of warm cocoa. She took it with both hands and sipped slowly. A door creaked down the hall. Ethan emerged, hair tousled, eyes still heavy with sleep. He stopped when he saw Lily, his gaze narrowing slightly. She's still here. Good morning to you, too, Michael said, trying to keep his tone light. Ethan ignored the jab and walked past them, grabbing a box of cereal from the cabinet. He poured it into a bowl and ate standing at the counter, shooting quick glances at Lily, who stayed silent. Michael watched the tension rise like steam between them. Later that day, Michael drove Lily back to the hospital for a scheduled checkup. The pediatrician greeted her like an old friend, but Lily barely smiled. She answered questions dutifully, endured the blood pressure cuff and temperature checks, then asked, Again, if she could see her mother. Rachel Thompson was still unconscious. Michael peeked into her ICU room on the way out. No change. Back at home, Ethan waited at the kitchen table, homework open but untouched. You took her out? He asked. She had a doctor's appointment. And I guess now she's just living here? Michael hesitated. Just for a little while. Until her mom wakes up. Ethan looked away. It's like you forgot we already had a family. Michael sat across from him. I haven't forgotten anything. But this isn't just about us, Ethan. She needs somewhere safe. So did I? When Mom died. The words hit Michael harder than he expected. He reached for his son, but Ethan stood up and walked to his room, closing the door with more force than necessary. That night, Michael found himself pacing the hallway, caught between two closed doors. One belonging to the boy he had barely learned how to comfort, and the other to a girl who was quickly becoming something more than just someone he had rescued. He sat on the couch, watching Lily draw quietly on a legal pad with a pencil she'd found on the coffee table. She was sketching something, stick figures standing under a snowflake-filled sky. Is that your mom? He asked, pointing. She nodded. That's me, and her, and you. Michael swallowed. Why me? She didn't look up. Because you stayed. The next morning, Michael received a call from Dana Price. You're going to want to sit down for this, she said. Someone leaked photos from the hospital, the night you found Lily. There's a clip going viral. He opened the link she sent. It was grainy footage from a security camera across the street. Michael kneeling in the snow, lifting Lily into his arms. Her limp body, the scarf wrapped around her, the urgency in his movement. It was only a minute long, but it had exploded online. Hashtag Wall Street Savior. Hashtag Seal with a Heart. Hashtag PR Stunt. The captions varied. Some praised him. Others accused him of opportunism, exploiting a child's pain for public sympathy. They're saying it's a setup, Dana said. That you staged it. You need to be ready. Michael felt his stomach turn. That evening, Lily sat curled on the couch, clutching her backpack. Michael approached, sitting beside her. I need to tell you something, he began. Some people saw the video of us. The night I found you. It's on the news. Her eyes widened. I didn't mean to get you in trouble. No. It's not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. But they're saying bad things, she whispered. That I'm fake. Michael took a breath. People like to talk, Lily. Especially when they don't know the whole story. She looked down. I didn't want to mess up your life. He reached out, took her hand. You didn't mess up anything. You gave it meaning. The next day, Michael held a press conference. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. He stood behind the podium in a crisp navy suit, tie slightly loose, face drawn but steady. I didn't save that little girl, he said, voice low but clear. She saved me. From silence. From being numb. From believing I had nothing left to give. He paused. 3 years ago, I lost my wife. I lost my sense of direction. And then, one night, I found a child in the snow. Alone. Cold. Brave beyond her years. She reminded me that humanity isn't about image or profit. It's about presence. She was looking for light. And maybe, without knowing it, so was I. He stepped away without taking questions. The video went viral, again. But this time, the narrative began to shift. Comments flooded in. He didn't need to say that. But he did. She saved him. That part hit. I watched this with my daughter. We both cried. At home, Lily watched the video from the couch. Ethan, standing behind her, watched in silence. He said all that for you, Ethan said. Lily looked up. You think it's true? Ethan shrugged. Sounds like something my mom would have said. Lily hesitated. Do you miss her? Every day, Ethan said. She reached out and held his hand. They didn't speak again, but something between them shifted, subtle, but real. That night, Michael tucked Lily in on the fold-out bed he had bought just for her. Down the hall, Ethan's door was slightly ajar. Before he turned in for the night, Michael stood between the two rooms, heart caught in the unfamiliar space between. Two children, both fragile in different ways. One born to him, one delivered by fate. And for the first time, he didn't feel afraid of the responsibility. He felt ready. Winter deepened its grip on Chicago. Snow blanketed the streets like a heavy silence, muffling the city's usual pulse. The lights from the surrounding high-rises glowed against the frost-tipped windows of Michael Carter's penthouse, casting long shadows over a home that no longer felt like it belonged to just one man. Lily had been living with them for nearly a week. The apartment, once sterile and orderly, now bore signs of life. Crayon drawings taped to the fridge, a half-assembled puzzle on the coffee table, a stuffed bear resting on the arm of the couch. And yet, beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. Rachel Thompson still hadn't woken up. Michael checked the hospital every day, calling in the morning and stopping by in the evening. The nurses kept saying the same thing. Stable, but no significant improvement. She remained unconscious, caught somewhere between presence and absence. The tension at home was growing. Ethan had grown quieter. He spoke less at dinner, lingered in his room longer, and offered only short, clipped answers when Michael tried to engage. One evening, as Michael returned from the hospital, Lily ran to greet him at the door, a drawing in her hand. "It's a picture of all of us," she said, beaming. "Me, you, Ethan, and Mommy. We're in a park." Michael smiled as he crouched to take it. "You're getting really good at this." Behind them, Ethan stood in the hallway, watching. Lily looked up. "Can I see Mommy tomorrow?" Michael hesitated. "I'll ask. Maybe." She nodded and ran off. Ethan stepped into the kitchen without a word. Michael followed. "Ethan," he said carefully, "I know this is a lot. You think?" Ethan snapped. "She draws our family like she's part of it." "She is, right now." "Not really. Her mom's still alive. She's going to leave. And then what?" "Everything goes back to how it was." Michael opened his mouth, but found no words. Ethan shook his head. "You forgot about me." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. You used to read to me every night. You used to show up. Now you spend more time with her than with your own son." Michael's voice softened. "She needed me. So did I." Ethan turned and walked back to his room, slamming the door behind him. Michael stood there, frozen in place. For all the effort he had made to help Lily, to show her stability, he hadn't seen the pain quietly growing in his own child. The next morning, the phone rang. It was the hospital. "She's awake," the nurse said. "Rachel's awake." Michael closed his eyes. Relief surged through him like a wave. "When can Lily see her?" "Soon. But there's something you should know. She's confused. She doesn't remember much." Michael frowned. "How much?" "She didn't know where she was when she woke up. We're assessing for temporary memory loss. Possibly post-traumatic amnesia." Michael nodded slowly. "I'm on my way." He told Lily the news gently. Her face lit up. "She's awake?" "She really is." "She is. But she might be a little confused at first. The doctors said we should wait before you see her." Lily grabbed her coat anyway. "I want to be there. Please." Michael didn't argue. They arrived at St. Jude's just after 9. The ICU was quiet, filled with the steady beeping of machines and the rustle of nurses. When they reached Rachel's room, Michael asked Lily to wait just outside the glass. He entered slowly. Rachel was propped up slightly in bed, eyes half open, staring at the ceiling. Her face was pale, thinner than he remembered, her expression dazed. "Rachel," he said softly. She turned her head, eyes flickering toward him. There was no recognition in them. "I'm Michael Carter. You helped deliver my son years ago. My wife was Caroline." She blinked slowly. No response. "You collapsed in the hospital stairwell. You've been here for over a week." Rachel's brow furrowed. Michael tried again. "Your daughter, Lily, she's here. She's safe." At the mention of Lily, Rachel's body tensed. "Daughter?" "Yes. Lily. She was trying to find you." Rachel shook her head slowly. I don't remember." Michael's chest tightened. "She's just outside. Do you want to see her?" Rachel looked frightened now. Please. I don't know who she is." Michael stepped back, heart sinking. Outside, Lily watched through the glass, her small hands pressed against the window. "She doesn't remember me," she whispered when Michael returned. Her voice cracked, but she didn't cry. "If she doesn't remember me, am I still her daughter?" Michael crouched in front of her, unsure how to answer. Lily looked down. "Maybe I was just meant to be lost." Back at the apartment, things unraveled further. That night, Michael noticed Ethan's bedroom was quiet. Too quiet. He knocked. No answer. When he opened the door, the bed was empty. A note lay on the pillow, scribbled in Ethan's careful handwriting. "I don't know where I belong anymore. You have a new family now. Maybe that's what you needed. I just didn't want to get in the way." Michael's heart dropped. He grabbed his coat and rushed out, mind racing. Where would Ethan go? He remembered that first night, under the bridge. The place where he had found Lily. He drove there, ignoring the snow, ignoring the cold. And there he was, Ethan sat on the same cardboard Lily had once used as a bed, his coat pulled tight around him, eyes red. Michael parked, ran to him. "Ethan," he breathed. "Thank God." Ethan didn't look at him. "You were right," Michael said. "I've been so focused on helping someone else that I forgot I already had someone who needed me." Silence. Michael sank to his knees beside him. "You're my son. My first promise. Nothing, no one, will ever replace you." Ethan looked at him then, eyes shining. "Then why did it feel like you were leaving me?" "Because I was scared. I didn't know how to help you. And Lily, she reminded me how to care again. But I should have started with you." Ethan leaned into him, and Michael wrapped his arms around his son, holding him tighter than he had in years. They sat like that in the cold, as snow fell gently around them. When they returned home, Lily was asleep on the couch, clutching her backpack. Ethan walked over, adjusted her blanket, and sat beside her. Michael watched from the doorway, feeling the walls inside him shift. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't neat. But maybe it was enough. And maybe, just maybe, they were finding their way back to each other. Together. The snow had stopped by morning, leaving the city quiet and white, like a canvas wiped clean. Sunlight poured through the windows of Michael Carter's apartment, casting golden light over the living room where two children sat shoulder to shoulder, quietly working on paper snowflakes. Ethan showed Lily how to fold the corners just right, his hands guiding hers with surprising patience. She giggled when her first snowflake tore, and he helped her try again. There was no tension between them now, just a fragile, growing bond born from long nights, shared silence, and something deeper than words. Michael watched them from the hallway, a mug of coffee cooling in his hands. It had been 3 days since he found Ethan beneath the bridge, and everything since then had shifted. Rachel was recovering steadily. Her memory had begun to return in slow fragments, an image here, a voice there, but she still wasn't ready to see Lily. Doctors warned it would take time, possibly weeks, possibly longer. Michael had explained this gently to Lily, expecting heartbreak. Instead, she had simply nodded. "I can wait," she said. "She'll remember me when she's ready." There was something about the way she said it, so certain, so full of quiet faith, that made Michael's throat tighten. He stepped into the room. "I have an idea." Both children looked up. "What kind of idea?" Ethan asked. Michael held up a small, battered notebook. "Let's make something for your mom, Lily. Something she can read when she's ready." Lily blinked. "Like a letter?" "Better. A whole book. Your story. Everything that happened. Everything you want her to know." She looked at Ethan. He nodded. They spent the afternoon at the table, surrounded by colored pencils and pages torn from sketch pads. Lily drew pictures, her sleeping on the cardboard, the lights of Michael's building, the ambulance, the hospital bed, Ethan offering her cocoa. Each image was simple but honest. Michael helped write captions beneath them. Sometimes Lily dictated. Sometimes she wrote them herself in large, uneven letters. By evening, they had a small handmade book, bound with ribbon, titled, "When I Followed the Light." That night, Michael sat on the edge of Ethan's bed after reading from a storybook they hadn't touched in years. "You really think she'll remember everything?" Ethan asked. "I don't know," Michael admitted. "But even if she doesn't, she'll still know who Lily is. And that she was loved. That matters." Ethan hesitated. "Are you going to keep her here?" Michael looked at his son carefully. "What do you think?" Ethan picked at a fray in his blanket. "I think she belongs with us. Like she's supposed to be here." Michael smiled. The next day, Michael took Lily to the hospital with the handmade book. Rachel was awake, alert, sitting up in her bed. Her eyes lit up when she saw Lily walk in, hand clutching Michael's. There was still uncertainty in her face, but not fear. Lily stepped forward slowly. "Hi, Mommy." Rachel blinked, then smiled faintly. "Hi, sweetheart. I made something for you." She held out the book with both hands. Rachel took it, fingers trembling slightly as she opened to the first page. As she flipped through the drawings, of snow, of light, of Michael and Ethan, her lips parted in soft recognition. A tear slid down her cheek. "I remember this," she whispered. "The scarf. The lights." Lily climbed gently onto the bed beside her. Rachel wrapped one arm around her daughter, holding her like something she'd lost and just found again. Michael stepped back, giving them space. Later, in the hallway, Rachel approached him. "She told me everything," she said. "About the bridge, the hospital, about you." Michael nodded. She's stronger than any adult I know. Rachel looked down, then back at him. I don't want to uproot her. Not now. Not when she finally feels safe. I'm still recovering. And you? You're her mother, Michael said gently. That doesn't change. Rachel's eyes filled again. I know. But maybe we don't have to go back to the way things were. Maybe we can build something new. Michael understood what she was saying. Not a handoff. Not a goodbye. A shared choice. A different kind of family. 2 weeks later, on Christmas Eve, the apartment was full of warmth and motion. Lily danced around in fuzzy socks, stringing paper garlands along the banister. Ethan set the table with care, his old Legos scattered in the corner where he and Lily had built a castle together. Rachel, still recovering but stronger every day, stood beside Michael in the kitchen, stirring hot chocolate. You know, she said, this might be the strangest family gathering I've ever been part of. Michael laughed. You get used to it. She glanced at him. Thank you. For everything. For keeping her safe. For letting her in. Michael met her eyes. She let us in. That night, the four of them gathered around a small, slightly crooked Christmas tree that Lily and Ethan had decorated themselves. The ornaments didn't match. The star on top was made of aluminum foil and paper clips. But it glowed. Lily handed Rachel a wrapped box. Inside was a photo frame, holding a picture Ethan had taken on his old tablet. The two children sitting in the window seat, reading side by side, snow falling behind them. Rachel touched the glass with gentle fingers. Home, Lily said softly. It doesn't have to be the same as before. It can be better. Michael looked around the room. At Ethan, no longer angry but whole. At Lily, no longer lost but found. At Rachel, not just recovered, but open. And at himself, not the man who once lived in silence, but the one who had chosen, again and again, to stay. As the clock struck midnight, Lily leaned against Michael's shoulder. You know, she whispered, when I saw your building that night, I thought it was the brightest thing in the world. He smiled. And now, she pointed to the tree. Now this is. Michael looked at the soft lights, the messy decorations, the family, his family, gathered close. And he knew she was right. The brightest light wasn't in the skyline. It was in the room, built from broken pieces, held together by choice. A family, not born, but made. Together.